morning, everyone. Welcome back to Haggett Hill. It's a beautiful day here today. It's cloudy, it's overcast, it's about 65 degrees. We might get a little rain later today, but right now it's a perfect day to work outside. Won't be too hot and won't be too sunny. So what I'm going to do today, I got a couple modifications to do to my sawmill. I'm going to build a DIY or a homemade toe board for it. I've got a milling project coming up and I'm going to have to mill some different logs for this project. And then I also want to put some steps on it. Put the steps down here on the frame. I've seen the fold down steps, but you know they cost money, which is not a lot, but you know I've got some scrap material around. So watch along as I fabricate the steps for the trailer and then work on the toe board. Okay folks, here's what I'm going to use. I've got this piece of 3-inch channel that I had left over from when I did the trailer build. I've measured my tires, and my tires stick out about 8.5 inches from the frame. Obviously I don't want the step sticking out past the tire. So this piece is right at 13 3/4 inches long. Just going to cut it in half and weld a piece onto each side. That piece isn't square, it doesn't really matter, but let's square it up just to make it look a little bit better. We could have used it on the outside edge. We'll clean it up a little bit with the grinder on the edges so we'll have a good weld. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now I don't know about you all, but before I weld, I got an old pair of grungy overalls in my shed that I put on, especially if I'm wearing shorts to keep my legs from getting burned or anything like that. And these are so rough I don't even have the clasp. I have to cable tie these on, but hey, use what you got, right? We'll get that paint ground off of there so we'll have a nice solid weld. I'll go to the other side and grind it off. I won't take you over there for that. You know what a grinder looks like. Well, there you have it. It's not real pretty, but it's good enough for a step. Let's see if it'll hold this old fat boy. How about that? That's a success. We'll go over and weld on the other side. No need to bore you with that. Alright, we'll get them cleaned up a little bit. Shoot some paint on them. just to keep the rust off. Not like I'm painting the car here. Believe that'll work out. Okay, here's the finished product on both sides. Quick, simple little project. It'll help me out a lot whenever I'm putting gas in the sawmill and different things like that. Okay, the next modification I want to do, most of you that have a sawmill or been around sawmills know what a toeboard is. Well, I want to build a toeboard for this. Could buy one from Woodland Mills. I don't know, they're a couple $100 plus shipping, but you know, I'm a DIY guy and like to do stuff on my own. I bought a Harbor Freight scissor jack a couple weeks ago for 15 bucks or something like that. I'll show you the rest of the parts that I've amassed and then show you how I'm going to do the build. Okay, so here's the major components. Got the Harbor Freight jack, like I said, about 15 bucks. What I'm intending to do is to cut this little swivel thing off because I don't need this. This is a piece off of an old tractor shipping crate that I had given to me. Use some of the steel for fabricating different things. I'm going to cut these legs off right here a little bit shorter, and then I'm going to weld it on the top just like this. Weld it on here, then the log will cradle right in between these 2 points. Put a little angle on these, and then I've got an old socket I'm going to put in here, weld in here just so I can stick a 3/8 inch ratchet in there or stick an impact in there to be able to run it up and down. Alright, we'll begin by trying to cut this off. Let's see if we can get that down in there. That's pretty hard, but it appears to be working. How about that? Alright, I had these pieces of old angle iron that were part of the trailer build project, and in between my rails it's 25.5 inches. So I'm going to cut these at 25 inches, and that'll give me a little bit of wiggle room. That way these will slide really easily. I'm going to square them up and cut some of this ugly off the end. Doesn't have to be real precise. Alright, so that's kind of how that's going to work. Put the jack in here. See how wide it needs to be for this to slide back and forth. We're going to give it just a little bit of wiggle room. That appears to be about 4 inches. Actually 3 7/8 to the outside. We're going to give it 4 inches to the inside. That'll give me just a little bit of room to swivel back and forth. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of these pieces that I cut off, cut them off at 4 inches, and then weld in here for the stops and to keep the pieces together. So let's get them cut off. Perfect. All right, we'll get that tacked on there. Alright, that part's done. We'll take it over and give it a test fit. Alright, and what I thought about this piece is just putting a little angle on it, kind of letting the log rest down in there. I think a 45-degree angle will be okay. We're not going to be real precise. I'm going to cut that off. Boy, those are definitely ugly, but they'll work. I didn't have a good ground on that. If you notice, there was a lot of splatter. Well, and here's the finished product. Doesn't look as pretty as the Woodland Mills one, but I think it'll work. You can slide this wherever you want, move it from bunk to bunk. This slides back and forth, and the tree should cradle right in there. I believe it'll work. Well, thanks for helping out with another successful project here on Haggett Hill. Remember, if you like the content, please like and subscribe. Leave me a comment. It helps the channel grow. And as always, get out and enjoy God's creation, and may God bless you and your family.